Thanks for joining us for another tabletop review and field strip. In this pretty box, we've got the Archon Type B. I've been waiting a long time to have my hands on one of these ever since seeing rumor photos of them a couple of years ago. We'll take a look next, coming up on GBGuns. So the box with the nice shiny bit on it, if you will. Inside we have our manual and a bag, package within a package. Taking a look at the manual here, we have color photos and a few interesting things in this that make this manual different from others. One, for example, is they've gone through and taken the trouble of printing some of the state-specific laws. But there's also some details in here that I found a little, well, out of the ordinary. And that is probably a good match for this gun, because this gun is out of the ordinary. I'm going to get the box out of the way and we'll take a look at the bag. Yes, the bag is what we'll see next. So this packaging, best I can tell, is done by a company called Maltera, which is here in the US. Not a lot of information out there aside from Salient and 75th Ranger Regiment using some of their stuff. You notice that although it is just a nylon bag, we have waterproof zippers with the nice shrink wrap on paracord zippers, which makes the pulls very easy. We open it up, we have a full bottle of lube, not just one of those little samples. 3 spare mags, a Sharpie, marked Arsenal Firearms. Is it still silver? Yes, it is silver. Reason for that is so that on the bottom of the magazines here, if I can put that in somewhat smoothly, that is a top pocket. Bottom of the magazine floor plates has these grids which you can color in to number your magazines. Now, one of the things that I said was interesting about the manual, and those of you who have been following the history of these guns know that they've appeared and disappeared, been under different names, different importers. No one's really sure who's manufacturing them. I have some clues on that. And, well, here's the left side of the magazine, right? Our witness window's on the right side, which is not my favorite side. This is really a left-handed magazine. Reason being, when you eject the mag as a right-handed shooter to do a check, on the back and side here, you can't tell how many rounds you have. If you're a left-handed shooter, you eject, you can get your quick reading, and in very European styling, we have full, medium, hey bud, you're getting low, and out, marked on here. So no individual round windows. I believe this system is faster, and I can appreciate it, having run through courses and in competitions where I just need to do a quick check. I don't need to see that I'm on my 11th round of 15. Just know that I've got at least 10 left in there, kind of deal. But notice in the manual, this image here, which shows proper loading the magazine, shows the witness windows clearly on the left side of the magazine. You can see the floor plate and its orientation. That's a different magazine than this one, which makes me wonder if that was a different production run, if that was some type of error, who knows, but peculiar. Lots of great details in this manual, far greater in depth than I've seen in other manuals, which I really appreciate, and very clear images pointing out exactly what you should be looking for. Enough with that. You also, of course, get your obligatory lock, and in this nice padded pouch up top is our pistol. Now we can get all the package stuff out of the way and take a look at the real reason why you're here, the Archon Type B. So this, of course, had lots of fanfare at SHOT Show when it was first demonstrated. Pictures of it were all over the internet for a while, and then poof, it was gone. So wanted to, well, try to figure out what was going on there before you think it's just another striker-fired 15-round polymer frame handgun. Stick around for some of the details on this. First off, we'll show clear. Magazine does that weird thing where you get that click and you can see it unseats, but doesn't eject until you push all the way through. Now, the magazine catch is reversible on this gun very easily. Put the magazine in backwards, Catch falls out, turn it the orientation you want, pull the magazine back out. Now we have a right side magazine release, which, by the way, does not do the strange half click. So I'm probably going to leave it on this side, since I prefer that anyways, using my middle finger to just punch, or for people with smaller fingers, smaller hands, to use their trigger finger to punch it out without having to shift your grip to reach over to there. So we have the magazine out, we can see our chamber is clear, and now we can finally take our look around the gun. Coming around the front side, which is where we always start, and just in case you're new to the channel, no, I don't film this with my eyeballs. The camera is in front of me on a 90-degree mount, so this is not pointed at my face, and even if it was, I just showed clear, regardless. Right, so frame to slide fit. We have a little bit of play on the frame to slide, but only up front. Barrel within slide, locked absolutely solid, and here, absolutely solid. There is no room to move that barrel within from either end. So it is locked in tight. We can see a stainless guide rod. Very cool system, more on that later. Multiple points for mounting the mounting accessories. Some texturing on the front strap, and this is directional. Hopefully the lighting will show it for you. And as in, you have your catch up top and it's smooth up, and that is a great spot for it because the gun is going to try to rise. So this texturing will not grip you on the way down, but will grip on the way up, exactly how it should be. We have a memory point on both sides of the gun for resting your trigger finger and your support thumb. Slide serrations all up the front, and then that little notch for making press checks easier from the front if you're into that. Also gives it a distinctive look. Nice high relief cut on the trigger guard here, which allows me to get all three fingers on the frame of this gun, despite it being a 15-round gun. Most 15-rounders, I can't do that. We can see that our magazine button has a little bit of shielding here to help reduce accidental discharge or accidental bumping. Slide catch and release, easily within reach, and it functions as both a catch and release. The trigger shoe itself, now there were complaints about these allegedly getting hot and being made of metal in the beginning. This one does not feel like it's metal. Either way, I'm here in Oregon. I don't think the ambient temperature is going to be high enough for me to put enough rounds through this in an afternoon for it to be uncomfortably hot. But you can see we do not have the safety dingus on it, a la Glock. Trigger pull, comes to a wall, creeps a little, and then breaks. And I will show you later internally exactly what's happening there. They claim a 1/10 of an inch reset, which is the same as Walther or like a Langdon Tactical that's really tuned. It feels a little longer than that, but I think that's because the angle of the shoe here, kicking your finger out. Maybe. I don't know. Nice relief here for the thumb to rest and for the trigger finger to be able to get in on that side. And the texturing on the grip is pretty cool. Got these squares that are not flat. They're completely flat in some areas, and then in others they're raised in specific patterns to grip. For example, on the front here, they grip movement against that way, which would be the gun rising and recoiling. And on the back side, the back strap, you can see they're angled the other way to help lock the gun in your hand. That is a pretty cool feature. It's making some marks on my hands, but they're not sharp. So it's still softer than like M&P 2.0 kind of texture, but definitely has some grip to it. You can see nice flaring of the magazine well there. We get the light in. There we go. See that edge? It's good and wide. And another thing I noticed with this is that's the magazine fully seated. Even slide back, there's that gap there. So you have plenty of pinch room if you don't know how to properly clear a Type 3 and you want to try to rip the magazine out. That would do it for you. Additionally, on the front, you have a scoop here to let you get a finger in there, and on the back, a little divot to be able to get your thumb in to pull. So ripping this magazine out is going to be easy if in a panic, high stress moment, you forget the proper way to clear a Type 3 malfunction. Coming around the back side of the gun, there is this piece here that pushes slightly into the web of your hand as you grip. Now, I don't really feel it as I'm holding the gun, but I've also noticed that mine looks a little more rounded than the ones I saw on the internet when this first came out. That looked more like a spine. This is a bit thicker and broader. So maybe they've made that change. You also notice the relief on the corners here to help minimize banging up your knuckles, which is a problem large hands like mine have on guns of this size sometimes. So it feels really comfortable and does seem to sit fairly low in the hand. Now, I am not a believer of the low bore axis stories that are out there. To me, it seems that all bore axes are about the same. The aesthetics of a gun can make it look or feel different, but this gun might actually be an exception to that. To show you what I'm talking about as far as how this gun might be an exception to the low bore axis bit is watch the chamber as I cycle the gun. Even Tacticity notices that. It comes back, but it doesn't come down at all. And that means that the barrel is able to be lower. Can't quite get light in there, sorry about that. I'll have to show you something else. Once it slides off, the barrel sits right at the magazine. There's no real jump. And you'll see that when I field strip it. So that's because of a different speed locking system, or AF, that they refer to in here. I'll show you that when we do the field strip. But on the right side of the gun and back, actually, to show you that slide to frame fit, a little bit up and down, 0 side to side, and you see the serial number is there on that piece of metal. Although it's also on the frame, this is a chassis system gun, and they advertise in the manual that you can remove it, much like you can on a Grand Power or an Auto Defense. SIG also did the same thing a little later on, made more noise about it, and swap on different grips. So curious to see if in the future, as these things grow in popularity, what different frames will have as options. So slide frame went over. Right side controls, I've reversed the magazine release button already, and that's it. We've got a very small ejection port, which to me tells confidence, but I've seen other European made guns with equally small ports that run without issues. Speaking of European made, some of you may remember that when these first came out, if you were paying attention to them, the slides were marked made in Germany, whereas mine's got the HU for Hungary, and the frames were made in Hungary, whereas mine is marked made in Germany. So Germany and Hungary, what do those two have together? Well, if you've been shooting for any length of time, you have shot Gecko ammo, and it's manufactured in both companies, or both countries. By the way, for disassembly, I pull the slide back a little bit, push on that pin, and I can pull that pin out. It is retained, so it stops there. Let the slide go forward, pull the trigger, slide comes right off. And under our slide, we have the Gecko stamp. Gecko makes ammo. Are they also making slides? Well, possibly, because Gecko is owned by Ruag, which is sort of like the Lockheed Martin of Europe. They make everything from advanced tank firing systems to vehicles, jet aircraft, ammunition, all kinds of munitions. So that Gecko stamp is, I think, a positive. Take a look at our frame here. We can see we've got very long rails on both sides. That's part of what keeps that slide to frame so aligned. And then watch back here on our trigger mechanism. Those of you that follow us on Instagram have already seen this, and I'll explain why I showed that. So our trigger has take up, then a little grind. Not grind, I'd say, but slack or mush before it breaks. take-up, a little bit of mush, and then it breaks. Hopefully, we get it zoomed in so you can see what I'm talking about. That feeling, which some people might want to complain about, is there's your take-up. Right to there. You push against that little triangle. Then you've got that creep, which is actually moving this second piece here, and then it breaks. And all of that while this piece is moving laterally. And that's interacting on the slide side with this piece, which you see has a wedge on it. So instead of it being a straight angle with a piece that's coming up to engage, it's a wedge that's sliding. And that gives you a little bit more of a squeeze kind of feel on the trigger, but it also potentially helps them keep this slide so thin because you need less vertical space. Just a theory, don't quote me on this. I'm just throwing ideas out there. But found that interesting. Also that your ejector, which on almost all pistols is a passive action, right? The round is dragged back, smacked against this, and that's what kicks it out. It's interesting that it continues so far back and becomes actually part of the operation system of the rest of the gun. How? I don't know. I'm not an engineer. So we have that out, and we can see pretty much zero machining marks, a little bit here on the bottom of the barrel, but that's a tougher steel, so it kind of makes sense. And a 3-spring system recoil spring. Very reminiscent of the DPMS system. Some of you have seen videos where I put that in an AK, have one in an AR, have one in a Walther. Very cool setup, because what that does is it allows you to have a progressive rate of slide deceleration. Works as a great bump stop, like to cushion the blow, and accelerates on the way forward. And to show what I mean, I'm going to put this back together. Pull it back just a little bit. Find that sweet spot for the pin to pop back in. Which of course was really easy to do a minute ago off camera. But now that I'm on camera, there we go. So, in racking this, and this is very difficult to show on camera, it's easy and it gets stiffer, and then that last bit there, right there, is what it takes for the slide and frame to slam together. On most pistols, that slamming is where the recoil happens that you actually feel. If you've watched any of our slow motion videos, you've seen that the bullet detonating and traveling out the end of the barrel is not what starts a whole lot of movement in the gun or in the wrist. It's when the slide hits home back there that it causes recoil. So that's one way that they are softening recoil on this, aside from the bore axis being a little bit lower. But I know a lot of CZ fanboys get excited about low bore axis, so I'll say it one more time: low bore axis. There you have it. So we see our steel chassis system that rides inside the polymer frame, our multi-spring recoil system that, as you pull out, you realize the third spring is not captive. I like that because that means it's replaceable very easily. Also means potentially it's tunable. So should there be a type of ammunition that you prefer and you want to soften recoil, an aftermarket company could provide you a stiffer spring. If you want lighter ammunition to cycle, they can provide a weaker spring. So that's a cool possibility. Here's the other part that makes this gun different, is this locking block. Somewhat reminiscent of the way the Beretta 92s work, but that there, in that kidney-shaped piece that the pin that holds everything together is holding onto, that's what locks and unlocks. So you don't have to drag the barrel in and out as you do on the Browning system, and that permits for this super flat, super square looking barrel, which is kind of cool. We have a little bit of a target crown on the end there to help protect the rifling. It is 6-groove rifling, 1 in 10 right hand twist, as is standard for most 9mm these days. We have a little bit of feed ramp integrated in to see if we have full chamber support. As always, we're going to pull out our nozzler match. I've explained 1,000 times probably, but the reason why I use this is the most consistent ammo I have experienced thus far in my shooting, and so I can trust the fitment of this round to be representative of the gun and not a fluke of the ammunition. With the round tucked in there, we see we've got full chamber support. What I'm looking at there, if we get our camera to cooperate, is that the round is supported all the way around. You don't have any of the body of the brass exposed. That's helpful because, one, it makes for more, in theory, uniform combustion. You don't have brass swelling extra in one location versus another. And also in that it, well, if you have an eruption, it's going to be happening where that lack of support is. When you have a fully supported setup like this, any high pressure or pressure spike or whatever is still going to contribute towards pushing the bullet out the barrel, not contribute towards a rupture in the brass. So that is the Archon Type B tabletop and field strip. Putting it back together is reverse. If you're worried about getting this in backwards, you don't have to worry because it won't go in backwards. Nice little manufactured built-in idiot proofing there. Put it in the correct way. Incorrect, doesn't go in. Turn it around. Correct way. Sorry, I dropped it and lost my spot. Where are we? There we go. That direction it fits in. So you want your swoop of the kidney to come down towards the hand of the shooter. If you can remember that, then you don't have to guess and try each time. But we'll reverse disassembly to put it all back together. Nice and simple. Pull this back a bit, find the spot where the pin lines up. Now we're back in and we can do a quick functions check. It has a nice, very solid sound to the slide action. I expect this to be a very smooth shooter. When we get it to the range, we will of course hit it with our infamous what's for dinner test. Run light loads through heavy loads through it, fast and slow loads, hollow points, round nose, all of that. Not to test fail the gun, not to test fail the ammo, but to find out what combination works best for this gun and hopefully save you some trouble if you pick one of these up so that you know that it actually works with your preferred ammo. Thanks for watching. If you're waiting for the shooting impressions video, it's probably going to be a couple weeks after this video was filmed, simply because I have a writer event to go to and will be gone all week at that, shooting all of 2020's fun guns that have yet to be announced to the public as we get ready to figure out what goes into magazines, etc. Thanks for watching.